Senate Committee on Business Commerce will come to order. Clerk, call the roll.
Senator Schwartner.
Present.
Senator King. Here. Senator Blanco. Senator Campbell. Here. Senator Creighton. Senator Johnson. Senator Kolkhorst. Here. Senator Menendez. Senator Middleton. Here. Senator Nichols. Here. Dean Zaffarini.
Present.
There being 8 present, a quorum is established. Members, there is an overflow room in E1.028, E1.028 for those that are here. Members, thank y'all for being here. This is the second meeting of the Business and Commerce Committee. I think we're the only show in town today other than the floor, so thank y'all again for your time and attention. If there's anyone that would like to provide public testimony or register a position on a bill from today's posting, please register at the electronic kiosk outside the hearing room. I've been informed and advised that the live stream is still down, and there are a lot of individuals in Texas, actually around the nation, that want to hear Senate Bill 21 and the discussion with Senate Bill 21. So to that point, we're going to get some work done with Senator Zaffarini's bills, and then come back to Senate Bill 21 if possible. Comptroller Hager, are you okay with that? Do you have obligations? Okay. The other conflicting issue is that there are 4 members on the dais that are subcommittee chairs with finance, and we have a meeting at 10:30 with Chair Huffman. So we're going to stop the hearing at 10:25, and then the floor should be relatively short, starting at 11, and after the floor we'll reconvene here to finish all the business of the Business Commerce Committee. So it's so we'll get everything squared away with Chair Huffman as well at 10:30. So any questions, members, about kind of the schedule? Okay. Let the record reflect that all the senators are here. Senator Blanco and Senator Creighton and Senator Johnson are here. So we have a full dais. Chair lays out Senate Bill 72 and recognizes Dean Zaffarini to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman and members, Senate Bill 72 relates to the regulation of private passenger vehicle rental companies. Members, at times, members may need to rent a car for more than 30 days for long-term travel, temporary transportation, or other factors. Consumers also may want to purchase a damage waiver, which is offered by rental car companies to protect renters from financial liability in the event of damage to the vehicle. Currently, Texas law defines rental agreement inconsistently. The tax code allows rentals up to 180 days, but the collision damage waiver statute in the Business and Commerce codes limits rentals to 30 days or fewer, which prevents renters from obtaining collision waivers for rentals longer than 30 days. Senate Bill 72 would provide financial security to consumers by providing them the option to purchase damage waivers when renting a vehicle for more than 30 days. Generally, then, Senate Bill 72 would align the Business Code to extend the length of a rental agreement from 30 to 180 days under the Business Code to allow persons to obtain a damage waiver for the rental during that period and ensure persons receive a pro rata refund for the damage waiver if they return the vehicle earlier. That's all it does, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dean. This was a refile of a bill yesterday, I think, or last session. I think it died on 10th over in the
And it was
House.
recommended unanimously by this committee.
Right. Members, any questions of the author? Hearing none, the chair opens up public testimony on Senate Bill 72 and calls Don Schuent with Enterprise Mobility. Bill's in pretty good shape. Please state your name and begin your testimony. You have 2 minutes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Chairman Schwartner and Senators. My name is Don Schwent. I'm the Controller for Enterprise Mobility. We do business as Enterprise, Alamo, and National Car Rental, and also we operate the Enterprise Truck Rental Division. I'm here in support of Senate Bill 72. Thank you, Dean Zaffarini, for filing this bill. We support Senate Bill 72 because consumers and businesses that rent from us have asked for collision damage waivers, also known as CDWs, for longer than 30 days. And this bill allows them that option. And compared to historical trends, 30-plus day rentals are happening more frequently. It is a mystery to our team why the tax code and the Business and Commerce Code definitions do not line up. Both were written many years ago. We certainly agree with Dean Zaffarini. This is a simple definition change, and although it's simple, for our customers that desire the protections of a collision damage waiver for longer than 30 days, it is very impactful. To address the demand of the traveling public in Texas, we support this bill, and thank you for considering it. At this time, I could answer any questions.
Members, any questions? Hearing none, thank you. Anyone else wish to testify on Senate Bill 72? Hearing none, public testimony is closed. We're going to leave this bill pending. I'm being advised that the live stream is now up, so I'm going to turn the gavel over to Vice Chair King and ask him to recognize me on Senate Bill 21.
Okay, good morning. The chair lays out Senate Bill 21 and recognizes the author, Senator Swartner, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Vice Chair King. Members, this bill, Senate Bill 21, creates the Texas Strategic Bitcoin Reserve, sending a clear message regarding the decades-long spendthrift stewardship of our country by the federal government. Individuals and investment firms have reacted to excessive spending at the sovereign level by seeking alternatives to fiat currency. These alternatives have historically included gold and land, but now include, to many, cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin, referenced as digital gold by the United States Treasury, has become a recognized asset in the financial markets. Besides individuals holding Bitcoin directly or through custodianship on exchanges, multiple publicly listed SEC-regulated Bitcoin ETFs are now traded on U.S. stock exchanges. Bitcoin offers unique advantages in the digital era due to its limited supply and decentralized nature, in contrast to the federal government, which has an unlimited printing press and centralized control of the currency. Senate Bill 21 creates the Texas Strategic Bitcoin Reserve as a special fund managed by the Comptroller of Public Accounts. The bill allows Texas to diversify our investment approach, participate competitively in the digital financial economy, and leverage the benefits of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. Under Senate Bill 21, the Comptroller is authorized to acquire, exchange, sell, manage, and retain investments of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies with a market capitalization of at least $500 billion. The bill also allows for public participation through donations of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. All assets in the reserve will be managed under the same prudent investor standard currently followed today, ensuring responsible financial stewardship. Legislative approval is required before the Comptroller may transfer money from the reserve. The Comptroller may contract with qualified providers to assist in the administration and management of the reserve, including a custodian to assist in the safeguarding of assets. The bill also creates a Strategic Bitcoin Reserve Advisory Committee to provide cryptocurrency investment expertise and recommendations to the Comptroller. And lastly, the Senate bill requires a biennial report be submitted to the legislature and published online for public access. Thank you. We have the Comptroller and his team here today. Thank you, Comptroller Hager, as well as a representative for invited testimony from the Texas Blockchain Council, President Lee Bratcher. Before they are called up, I would like to take any questions, but I'd like to first point you to the two pieces of paper I put in front of you. One of them is a map of the United States showing the 32 states that have filed similar legislation. In addition, at the national level, there has been a great interest in this bill at the presidential level, with the president announcing a presidential working group on digital asset markets to study the strategic national digital asset stockpile. And then, of course, as y'all are probably aware, the Treasury Secretary and Commerce Secretary are also big proponents of digital assets and cryptocurrency. So it's a quickly evolving and very obviously interesting and pertinent issue, in particular because of, again, the spendthrift ways, profligate ways of our national government under both Republicans and Democrats, to be quite frank. The other piece of paper I would like to draw your attention to, and I'll read it as for those of you who do not have it in front of you, but it talks about our spending at the national level, our deficits, and our interest costs. In fiscal year 2024, the federal government spent $6.9 trillion, accounting to 24% of the nation's gross domestic product, according to the June 2024 estimate of the Congressional Budget Office. In 2024, the federal government collected $4.92 trillion in revenue, a shortfall of approximately $2 trillion. This is made up of money from a variety of sources, including taxes, custom duties, and national park admission fees. Growing debt, in addition to the rise in interest rates over the past couple of years, has significantly increased the cost of federal borrowing. In 2024, interest costs on the national debt totaled $881 billion, interest costs, surpassing most other components of the federal budget. This is why people are reaching for alternatives to fiat currency, because all fiat currency eventually goes to its natural worth, which is the paper it's printed on. And we can buy land, we can buy gold. I think the state of Texas should have the option of evaluating the best performing asset of the last 10 years with a 60% CAGR, cumulative annualized growth rate of 60% over the last 10 years. That's an astounding return. All financial assets have appreciation and also obviously diminished and loss of value. But that said, I think it's a worthwhile discussion. It's a message, a very clear message to our national government, and I recognize and appreciate the work they're doing with the DOGE committee. But in the end, we are spending in entitlements, dedicated spending, required spending, amounts that our children and our children's children will be unable to pay. And as Texas, we need to position Texas in the best course with all possibilities regarding solvency long term to meet the needs at the state level that we have been entrusted and are obligated to meet. So with that, that's the background of the bill, the reasons why I filed it, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. We can certainly ask the invited testimony to come up. If we'd like to do that first, I'm open to take any arrows.
Members, any questions, or do you want to go ahead and call up Comptroller? Senator Menendez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Schwartner, I have to agree with you. I mean, I think it's long overdue that we take the tremendous amount of funds that are sitting in this Economic Stabilization Fund, otherwise known as the Rainy Day Fund, and find a way to put that money to work on behalf of the taxpayers. My concerns are just the safety and the security of the investments. And I was noticing that this, for some reason, this advisory committee, you didn't put it inside Chapter 2110, which is the state advisory committees, which are required to make a report to the Legislative Budget Board, and I was just curious as to why.
That's the way it was advised to be written by Ledge Counsel. There is a report required. It is under the direction and supervision of the comptroller. This is supposed to be as transparent as possible. There is a conflating there, Senator. This does not take money from the ESF in any manner. The ESF also, what we did, I think 4 years ago, allows investments outside of just fixed dollar investments.
Right.
And so the comptroller can speak more eloquently about it, but there has been a significant appreciation in the money of the ESF beyond just money put in by severance taxes, but actually by money that has grown, money on our money inside the ESF.
Correct.
This is a brand new initiative, a reserve that if the legislature so sees fit, we can appropriate directly money through the budgeting process in a transparent manner into the reserve. In addition, we can take donations by individuals, companies that want to participate in the reserve in the sense of individuals believing that it's the future of currencies, or companies that are affiliated in some way with whether they're miners or exchanges that believe also in their industry and also want to put their money where their mouth is regarding donating to the reserve and helping kickstart it. To be quite frank, this Bitcoin could go to zero, or it could go to 1 million or 2 million or 5 million. I don't know. I don't think anyone knows. I do know that if we continue to spend on a federal level like we are, the dollar will continue to lose purchasing power, and people will look to alternatives, whether that's gold, whether or not that's land, whether or not it's income-producing assets, or whether it's cryptocurrencies, or a mix of those. We need to have all options open. Right now, the comptroller, for instance, in the ESF can purchase directly securities. There are funds such as the TRS and ERS funds that can purchase land or purchase directly companies. So there's a wide variety of assets that are currently allowed in some of our funds. This would be the first direct cryptocurrency reserve that they would be allowed to purchase cryptocurrencies that have at a total marketable market cap of over $500 billion. The only one currently in that range is Bitcoin, which I think has $1.7 trillion market cap. And I don't know what gold's is. Someone probably knows that out there. I think it's 3 or 4 trillion of the total market cap of gold, but someone's going to have to correct me on that. That testifies. So it's a thought. It's a alternative. It's also a specific signal to our federal government that is being echoed by many other states, that federal government, you can't continue to spend like this and expect our country to continue to be as prosperous as it has in the past.
Yeah, no, definitely have to agree with that. I think we have quite a bit of money in the ESF fund. I think I don't know what limitation. I know we had a limitation on how much can be invested in the ESF. I don't recall what that amount is. We'll ask the comptroller, but I think possibly allowing him to diversify that portfolio a little bit and maybe increase. We'll listen to see, but I'm just concerned about taking GR dollars and investing them. But I like the donation part and the other parts that you have in the reserve. So look forward to hearing the testimony. Thank you, Chairman.
I will mention, I believe the portion of the ESF that can be invested in any SEC listed security, and he's going to correct me on this, but that could include the various ETFs that are Bitcoin ETFs, which have extremely high volume. IBIT and ELF-BTC are two of the larger ones, Fidelity's and the iShares one. But and that's also the same with ERS and TRS. They, however, have chosen not to invest up to this time in those type of securities. They've been listed maybe a year and a half or 2 years, and they have already assumed massive volume on the exchanges.
Senator Johnson.
Yes, thank you. Chairman Schwertner, it's actually my very first campaign when I was a little baby aspiring senator. One of the things I talked about was the limitations on the comptroller's ability to invest money in the Economic Stabilization Fund. And I think it was that session that actually we did loosen up those rules. I'm aware, and I do look forward to some edification on the subject as to what the limitations are. But I do have some concerns with the move. I also understand that the signal factor here, I assume that it's a small amount, $21 million, because you're trying to establish a platform for future decisions, not make a big financial commitment at this point. Is that right?
Well, the bill does not actually have a spending amount. That would be done in a rider in the budgetary process.
I thought I saw somewhere $21 million. I might have dreamed it. Did I?
Maybe that's your staffer's notes.
It could well be. Why are we establishing?
It is something I am pursuing, is an active allocation appropriation. But again, that's a different committee, the Finance Committee and Appropriations Committee, that then are voted on by the entirety of as to whether or not a direct appropriation is appropriate by the legislature at this time into a newly formed fund. I think it should. We're going to
what scale?
If we're going to actually make the reserve, we should go ahead and fund it with something to show that we have an interest in participating in the digital currency world.
What kind of scale are we talking about? $1 billion, $1 million?
21 million is the
21 million.
Yeah.
Okay, so somewhere that came from somewhere.
And then again, if you that sounds like a lot, and it is obviously a lot.
Oh, it
but
sounds like a little.
On a relative basis to our $300+ billion budget, all funds in, it's not a pronounced amount.
I agree. It sounds symbolic, like not an actual investment. But as you just stated, we presently could, as a state, invest in cryptocurrency within whatever constraints there are on the comptroller's ability.
You can't do it in the Treasury, of course, as say in fixed dollar numbers. But the ERS, TRS, and the comptroller, I believe, will verify the portion of the ESF that can be invested in certain types of securities. I believe any SEC regulated security is open, but he'll have to clarify the percentages and whether or not what I just said is absolutely correct.
Okay, and forgive my ignorance. Page 3, line 3 establishes the reserve outside of the state treasury. Structurally, why do we put it outside the state treasury?
I think all those funds that are managed by the comptroller are outside the state treasury. The treasury is basically the checking book of the state of Texas.
And does that mean that it would not be subject to...
The ESF, for instance, is outside the state treasury, I believe.
And would it be
But
vulnerable...
we should probably bring him up to answer this question.
Would it be vulnerable, like so many other of our funds, to being held hostage to budget certification purposes?
I don't know that answer.
All right, well,
Sorry.
we'll check that one out too. Preview to witnesses coming up. The thing that actually gives me the most concern about this is a phrase that we see in almost all of our funds, which is that people can just, out of the goodness of their own hearts, deposit money into the account. Who would possibly want to do that other than somebody? Step back for a second. The beauty of cryptocurrency is that it's not run by any government. It's just free-flowing capital. And once the state of Texas puts its imprimatur on there, and somebody who might be worth $300 billion decides to throw $10 billion into the state's crypto fund, and they happen to own a crypto operation, they're like creating the market for themselves. Doesn't sound all that charitable. They might be using us, the state of Texas, to manipulate their market. How do we guard against that kind of bad behavior? I would say if we're going to do this, and I recognize cryptocurrency is here and it may be a prudent state investment, but I do not want the state to be a tool for an investor. I would close the thing off. No private investment, only legislatively appropriated funds.
Yeah, I think your point is well taken. I've thought of that obviously myself. Lee has some comments about basically front running by goosing the fund, elevating the asset price, and then selling out, right?
Yeah.
But there are ways to manage that potential, and there are rules that would be placed regarding how donations and from whom donations are accepted. So I think that could be handled from a structural standpoint when devising the parameters of the fund.
I appreciate it, and of course you have thought about it, and I appreciate the concern there. I'm so concerned about it. I would still advocate for having nothing because I can't imagine any altruistic move of dumping money into this fund. If you're that big of an altruist, we got lots of homeless shelters and other things you could put your money into than a state crypto fund.
I don't call it altruistic. I think it's certainly individuals, companies that have a direct involvement because they are miners, like Mara, for instance, or Riot, or there's a whole host of publicly traded miners, or Coinbase, one of the big exchanges. Yep. They might see, well, this is a sovereign entity, a state, wanting to participate and recognize in a recognition, really, as the president did at his desk when he announced the formation of the various entities that he has. A recognition of the transformation of currency into the realm of cryptocurrency, and that recognition being by sovereign entities now, not just by individuals participating in the crypto and financial asset markets.
I appreciate the whole thing, and I will keep an open mind, and we'll talk all of us more in the process. But I do have a great concern with billionaire tech bros owning branches of government. I don't want it happening.
I share your concern. I don't think this bill does it.
And some of them are my friends. I just don't want them owning the government.
Okay.
Okay. Members, anyone else? Okay. Chair opens up for public testimony on Senate Bill 21. Chair calls Comptroller Hager and Lee Bratcher. And Comptroller, will allow you ask you to go first.
Sounds good.
Welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, good to see everybody. I appreciate Senator Schwartner quickly said, any arrows come my way. If not, we'll call the controller. I appreciate that. That was duly noted what you said. So, good morning, Chairman Schwartner, members. For the record, I'm Glenn Hager, Texas Controller of Public Accounts. I'm happy to be here today to discuss Senate Bill 21, which creates the Texas Strategic Bitcoin Reserve at the Texas Treasury and Safekeeping Trust Company, where I serve as the sole shareholder and director in my capacity as controller. The trust company currently invests and manages more than $105 billion in state assets across multiple portfolios with different return and liquidity objectives. Investments include approximately $9 billion in long-term endowment assets that return investment gains of $745 million in 2024. It also includes investment portfolios with immediate liquidity profiles like the Economic Stabilization Fund and the SWIFT. Combined, these funds had balances of $25 billion at the end of 2024 and generated more than $1.1 billion in investment gains that year. The trust company also manages the Texas Treasury Pool account, which averages $79 billion, generated nearly $3.9 billion in investment returns in 2024. Investments include cash equivalent funds such as the Treasury Pool and separately managed portfolios including multiple long-term endowments. These portfolios are managed in accordance with the Prudent Investment Standard, which is a legal standard that requires trustees, the trust company in this case, to act with the highest standard of care when managing those investments. This helps ensure that investments for each of these portfolios are appropriate given the unique purpose and applicable distribution requirements. These conservative management practices for the investment of taxpayer dollars have furthered the trust company's efforts to grow the state's assets over time. However, technology is evolving, the investment landscape is shifting. As a prudent investor, we are always paying attention to these developments. There is interest in both the public and the private sector in exploring investments outside their traditional opportunities in ways that may help protect and preserve the state's assets over the long term. Cryptocurrency, Bitcoin most notably, has emerged as an option for institutional investors to consider as well as the part of a diversified portfolio, particularly since the SEC approved spot Bitcoin exchange-traded funds, ETFs, as we all know, in January of 2024. Recently, the President and approximately 20 other states have declared their interest in establishing digital asset reserves across the nation. This shift represents significant movement in how governments are approaching cryptocurrency, with many viewing Bitcoin as potentially a hedge against inflation and a way to better diversify their portfolio holdings. Texas obviously prides ourselves on being visionary. We have led the way in technologies like fracking in the oil and gas sector, and through the portfolios that we manage, we are early investors in companies that are transforming the defense industry, aerospace and space exploration, artificial intelligence, and blockchain technology. These companies are redefining national security with AI-powered systems. Autonomous platforms are strengthening security through development of new technologies, leading space exploration through breakthroughs in aerospace companies, or pioneering large language models. In the blockchain and digital innovation sector, we are investing around decentralized finance, AI-driven blockchain applications, and digital identity security. Our office is also responsible for the nation's first and only state-managed bullion depository. Looking forward on the horizon, Texas can be expected to play a role in such bold technological initiatives as AI, space exploration, quantum computing. Pioneering a strategic Bitcoin reserve is a natural step for Texas where innovation ideas are nurtured and pursued. My office has worked with the Senator, your office, as well as to ensure that the reserve can be administered in a manner consistent with our prudent investment philosophy while diversifying the state's investment portfolio. And we believe this bill takes a measured approach to managing a potentially volatile asset, a critical requirement when investing taxpayer dollars. This concludes my presentation, and as always, happy to answer questions that you may have.
Members, any questions?
I do.
Yes, Dean?
Thank you. Comptroller?
Yes,
Thank you,
ma'am.
Mr. Chairman. Comptroller, what level of funding would you recommend, or would you recommend at least a minimum?
Yeah, good question. So let me just real quick to answer, as was talking about earlier, we have the current ability to invest, we have started looking at, is this a potential part of our portfolio of the different endowments that we may have and different funds that we manage. And so we're moving in that direction. Part of those were questions on regulatory certainty, and so therefore, as responsible for taxpayer dollars, my point is we're kind of leaning in those directions. I think it's important to take kind of that first manageable step, not, oh, let's invest the entire ESF, as an extreme example, or all of the endowments, because you have to look at it as holistically. And so therefore, the point being is, I don't have an exact dollar amount to give you today, but I do think if you take this step, it's important to take a step and let's manage and lean into this over time. So I don't have an exact dollar amount.
Or a minimum even?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Are there any safeguards you would recommend for this legislation?
So one is just giving us the flexibility. There has been some discussions in some areas that we shall hold this for an exact amount of term or dollars. Well, personally, I think that flexibility allow us to do our job. And essentially, if that's holding it, we can upscale and downscale over time. So I just think having the flexibility is imperative. It's more than anything else.
The bill also would establish an advisory committee. What makeup of that committee would you foresee or would you recommend?
Yeah, so one, kind of in some other versions that were out there, whether you as legislators would be on the advisor, and there are things in the Constitution called separation of powers. And so therefore, I didn't think anyone wanted to give up their duties and responsibilities as legislators. So therefore, the point is, we have advisory committees. Obviously, if leadership wants to appoint advisory, but I always suggest that we have people who have skill sets like I do on my investment advisory board. We have an advisory board. I appoint that advisory board. But say, for example, there are people who are in it that come with different skill sets in investments, whether that's in universities, whether that's in families, whether that is in accounting, that side of it, to make sure everything is tended to on the accounting side. So we have kind of a wider group of people that come with different lenses and can help me and my team see it things from different angles. So expertise is more than anything else.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Campbell.
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Good morning.
What, for those of us who want more clarity, what do donations look like? How are those invested?
Yeah, so right now, we don't have the ability to bring in donations, to receive donations and to invest those. That's a component of this legislation. Originally, I think it was several years ago, if I recall correctly, we were asked on whether we would just receive donations in and of itself. Personally, I had a hedge against just a simple donation system because I didn't want it to be as though Glenn Hager, the controller of the state of Texas, is moving the market. I think the state should play a role in this. Obviously, when it comes to donations, there are some other, I'm not saying we shouldn't have them. It's just I have a certain few things that we have to look at. And so therefore, we can invest that whatever mechanism you want us to, then we will invest those just like we do the overall pool.
So your office wouldn't be responsible for any kind of a return on their investment? I'm thinking a donation.
I think really it would be if it is a donation to the state, then therefore that is coming to Texas. That is for us to manage after that. That is not something that I'm going to give you a rate of return, such as, say, for example, with 529 education accounts that we manage today. Obviously, we are managing those for people for the education of their children in the future. So this would be different, if I understand.
So, and that's what I wanted to clarify.
And so therefore, we have that flexibility.
If it's a donation, no one ever expects to get anything back.
Correct.
And that's what I wanted to make sure I understood well.
And I think it's essentially because there are a significant number of people that believe that, as Chairman laid out, that this is a hedge, this is a next step, and so therefore they're committed enough that they would be willing to donate.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you,
I
Mr.
don't want to take away from Chairman's words.
Chairman Swartner.
Yeah, just to further clarify and shed some light on donations, page 5, line 6 through 12, it does allow the comptroller to require information as well as have and may return or reject any donation. So there are parameters that would be set by the comptroller's office when it comes to any donation. I'm not dead set on donations. I think it's reasonable because I think people are very interested, as you can see, as I've seen on social media, as obviously the president has seen when he established this as his presidential committee regarding a national strategic national cryptocurrency reserve. Donations are affirmation by individuals, by companies that they believe in the validity of digital assets, and they're one way they can participate to the extent allowed and devised by the comptroller's office when making rules.
And if I may, Mr. Chairman, just for clarification for the members, something that my team is working with the chairman on this is that to make a point, why would we have the ability to reject certain ones is because, say, for example, what if that individual, that company, not that their intent was, but they may have tax issues before us. And so therefore, maybe there's an ongoing audit, maybe there's an ongoing, and so therefore, you want to make sure that for everybody's purpose, those that are donating, the state that is receiving, that it all looks as though there's not a conflict whatsoever. So that's why we asked for that ability.
Thank you, sir.
Senator Johnson.
Senator Zaffirini asked you for a recommendation or what might be in mind about an appropriate investment. And, we understand you can't give us an exact amount.
Yeah,
Can you give us an inexact amount or an order of magnitude?
Well, I guess I wouldn't think the entire state treasury.
Okay, less than that. Start.
That's one number.
This is fiscal conservatism
Yes, sir.
101.
Yes, sir. Not zero. So we've narrowed that down the extremities.
Yep.
So now we can work somewhere in between, Senator. I honestly, I haven't put thought to a number. I just haven't. I'm happy to do that. I'm happy with my team to work on that. It's just not something that I came prepared
And
to
I
give
can
an answer
appreciate
for.
that.
That's just the bluntness. I haven't come prepared to give a number.
Do we need this bill, this strategic crypto reserve, in order for you to run a diversified portfolio that includes cryptocurrency?
I can do that already. However, with that being said, having some parameters and expectations by you as the policymakers is always good. One of the things as you're moving through on various issues, we like goalpost in the executive branch. We like some parameters upon which your expectations as the policymakers. And so therefore, having legislation to give us some of those goalposts and for you to debate that policy, in my opinion, is a good thing for us, right? And so we have looked at, do we accept cryptocurrency in a different form, but in my agency, as collections in revenue? But then the cost mechanism of standing that up and being able to receive it didn't weigh out as the cost. So we haven't, but we have entertained that. We have looked at crypto in our current portfolio, but as I said, we wanted to have some of the regulatory certainty, some of those issues off the plate, while we may not take advantage of the rise, but we are a different investor. We're a different investor because it's taxpayer dollars, and so we may not be looking for the most maximum gain of alpha that we can get out there and the highest return. That's not our role. And so therefore, my point is, we kind of typically take one step at a time and lean into, we may miss the front end, but we're more defensive on the back end.
Understood. And your role in maintaining a diversified portfolio is different than perhaps this legislature is looking for in Mr. Chairman Schwartner's creating strategic reserve. It is a hedge. It could have value apart from what you could reasonably achieve within the comptroller's office.
So that's hopefully that helps, Senator.
As I can appreciate that. We've seen before that the legislature has appropriated a certain amount of funds for a particular purpose, and in the interim, the amount of funds dedicated to that purpose go up
Yes, sir.
dramatically, sometimes in the billions, recently. Is there any risk, and Mr. Chairman, I think your drafting is pretty careful. As I read your bill, I don't see how we could run into that problem. But I do think it's important to raise it. Could somehow, through budget execution, the executive branch increase multiply what the legislature appropriates to the strategic reserve?
I'm not prepared to answer that, to be very specific. I would like to try to answer it first. I would think that would be highly unlikely. Now, whether that could, in theory, occur, I'm not prepared to answer that question. I'm happy to try to find out. But the point is, I would have a hard time.
Would you
seeing
think that was
happen.
inappropriate on the executive branch to
I
add to
don't-
an amount that's appropriated
To
this
have
fund by the
an
legislature?
agreement for budgeting execution, which is moving dollars to manage the states as we're continuing to go through with uncertainty or not while you're not here. I mean, that's between the governor, lieutenant governor, the speaker. All of these things have to occur. So there's several checks in place is the point. And so therefore, and there's the LBB, which members sit on. And so therefore, there's all these steps in place. I just don't see that practically occurring, Senator. I really don't.
It's happened before, but I agree it would be hard to justify for purposes of this bill. So finally,
That's why it doesn't happen very often, right?
yeah, you talked about some concerns you would have with the donation, and the statute's been carefully drafted to give the
Yeah,
comptroller's
the senators
office
worked with us
some
well on that,
discretion.
and I appreciate that very much.
That gives
so.
me some comfort. However, it seems to me this is not really very free market oriented when essentially somebody with an interest in the industry can put money into this fund, which is more or less purchased advertising. It's a manipulative move to put money into a state fund to legitimize the whole project, thereby drawing more investment, more use of the currency. And is that an appropriate use of the state fisc?
Well, I just kind of, as I answered earlier, for me personally, and again, you're the policymakers, but Glenn on his own to go accept a donation, whether it's in whatever that may be, I don't want to move markets. That's not my job, right?
So would you reject one because it's too big?
Well, we'll see what the parameters are in the legislation. I haven't actually thought all of these through. There's a lot of moving pieces, and this one over here has a big piece of legislation that has a role in us playing, and so therefore we got a lot of moving pieces. So I haven't thought through all this, but the point being is, I would have a hard time imagining that it's something of that significant magnitude. Maybe, Senator, but I just don't.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Senator Nichols.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You said a while ago you thought even without this that you had the flexibility to invest in cryptocurrency already,
In our current endowments, yes, sir.
but you've chose not to.
We have slowly moved in as whether that is an option in the portfolio, whether that is part of the strategy that we should, but we have not to date, to answer your question. If ETFs, they just became approved, what was that, as of 24, sometime last year, as a tool, and then the SEC just had, that was it October or so of last year? So the point is, some of these options and some of the regulatory certainty has just occurred in less than 12 months.
But
So I don't think we would have done that before then, is my
Yeah,
point.
but ETFs are investment in various companies.
That's correct.
Equity.
That is correct. That is
It's
correct.
it's like a mutual fund.
That is correct.
Yeah. So those, when you are dealing with whether it's treasury bonds, state bonds, city bonds, school bonds, whatever, those are all guaranteed by the good faith and credit of those entities, most of which have tax exempt.
As long as they have good credit. Yes, sir.
Investments like gold have been recognized as a way to maintain value, not just centuries, but thousands of years. Do you buy any gold?
We don't have gold purchased today.
But we do have a strategic gold.
I have a yes, and we have stood that up, and it is operating effectively. Yes, sir.
Why did you not decide to buy any gold?
It is just not part of our portfolio, or even just to answer, we don't have a big position in, even though Texas is a big oil and gas state, we don't have a big position in oil and gas and commodities right now in our portfolio. So there's different reasons that at times for the different portfolios, we may increase or decrease part of that strategy, you know, whether it's domestic investments, foreign investments, just all the different mixes.
And so cryptocurrency is backed up with what?
So I think like anything, I mean, the cryptocurrency, much like a lot of different assets that are out there, they're backed up by the people that have faith and believe in them. And it is holding up a value. The same in a company. A company produces something, but people have to believe in that company.
Yeah, companies produce things. Sometimes they make money, sometimes they lose money.
But my point being is they produce things, but people have faith in that brand that either goes up or goes down in that value.
You can continue making cryptocurrency. We constantly,
Up to a certain amount.
then
In
you go to a
Bitcoin,
different
that is,
brand.
I should say. Bitcoin has a limit upon which
yeah, you hit the ultimate end of it.
that one does.
That particular one, as I understand it, and maybe it's one of these late night things I watched, but there's about 1 million of them missing. The guy that was originator of the whole thing, either he's lost his key or he passed away or whatever, but
Right.
there's supposedly 1 million that are unaccounted for,
Nobody knows on him.
which would have a value of over $1 trillion out there.
Probably so.
If we just, okay. All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I don't own any. Thank you.
Can I add to that?
Yes, but before you do, Chairman, just want to remind everybody, we're going to break in less than 10 minutes, and then we go to the floor at 11. So if you're here for any other bill, it's a good time to go get a brunch and come back after a while. Senator Swartner.
This whole discussion, and Senator Nichols rightly hits on it, is what is value? What is something that's considered a currency, or what is something of value? You know, Warren Buffett is famous for saying that gold is just a shiny rock, right? But it has value in the eyes of the vast majority of people across the world.
Right.
Cryptocurrencies, historically, 5 years ago, were seen differently in the light of federal government and in individuals. I would say cryptocurrencies have become mainstream by individuals and obviously in the financial markets. The SEC regulated ETFs don't invest in the companies that produce Bitcoin. They're not buying miners. They're not buying exchanges. They actually purchase Bitcoin, just like the GLD ETF, for instance. And they're massive ETFs. They're not small market cap ETFs. And again, the legitimacy at the presidential level, with the Presidential Working Group on Digital Asset Markets, with a stated goal of a strategic national digital asset stockpile, the United States Treasury classifying Bitcoin or referencing Bitcoin as digital gold in their published pieces of information. There is a shift and a change, and is brought about by spending and the value of the full faith and credit of the United States and other countries, which is something that is called into question. We always believe in the dollar, the green dollar, looking at a dollar, but you look at every country in the history of the world, their currency eventually goes to zero.
Senator Menendez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Comptroller Hager, thank you
Yes, sir.
for being here, what you do for us. On the advisory committee, have you reviewed the makeup of the committee? Have you gone over it? Have you had a chance to look at it?
I have not. My team and the senator's team have worked on this language
Got it.
together.
So currently, it says you, a member of your investment advisory
Yeah.
board, and 3 people who are experts in cryptocurrency.
Right.
I was wondering, since one of these members is already a member of your investment advisory, there's a part of me that would feel more comfortable, and I wanted to get your impression, how you feel. If you had 2 members of your investment advisory board and 2 crypto experts, and you would be like the tie-breaking on some sort of advice to move forward.
Well, the
What
way
did
the way the way I see this is obviously it's an advisory board.
Correct.
You know, we look for people who have expertise, who bring us information, and then we have a better set of information to make those prudent decisions off of. Now, we would, regardless of how the sizes and the number of people or where they come from, we are going to go out and seek input from a wide range of people beyond that number. I mean, that is what we do on everything that we work on, any investment that we make on behalf of the state. We go out with a significant number of people. It's not just here at this number.
So I appreciate that. Are you concerned at all with the impression, and I'm agnostic at this point in terms of how y'all move forward, but I am concerned about the impression that we give the 31 million Texans that now the state of Texas is an investor in Bitcoin and must be safe. I should go buy some too. Are you concerned at all about that?
Well, I think that's part of maybe the questions, in part, not to speak for the senators and dean, is what is that appropriate level, the signal that you're sending. I think that we as the state, we already invest in a large number of things. So is that determined as, this one investment or that investment that we're making, is that what the people should do? We don't hold a big position in commodities, but we firmly believe in the oil and gas sector in Texas, right? So we're not trying to send a signal. It's just not where we have our investments today. So I'm not sure, Senator. I'm really not. I think. Let me say it this way: people will utilize things in any way that they want to, and we can't control that in today's world. But I'm not sure that it'll be filtered out to people in that way.
The reason I bring this up, I have a friend of mine who had a app Coinbase and had quite a bit of his Bitcoin stolen. Poof. Yeah. And he's not the only person that this has happened to. And so I am concerned. Yeah, it's just gone. The app was hacked and his Bitcoin's gone. And so my concern is that people see the state doing this, and as opposed to if you have gold bars or coins or stocks that your stockholders holding, that this would be easy for them to lose, and that's a concern.
And we've talked internally what would be the best way. Whether do we hold those keys? Do other parties? There's all these security issues, and whatever that we're going to work through to make sure it's as secure as it can be, at least from what we would have if y'all pass the bill.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I just want to add regarding that issue, security is paramount, custodianship,
On everything.
On everything, right? And gold bars, Fort Knox, where you store it, financial assets, dollars, actual hard currency, where you carry it, where you put it, on a mattress, and then financial assets in general.
That's not how we manage assets, just for the record.
But financial assets in general, two-factor authentication, and how standard financial assets, stocks and actual dollar-denominated assets are transferred from one institution to another. There's always the potential for theft and for lack of proper custodial protocols. I believe in Texas, the Comptroller's Office is the most appropriate office to put in place the parameters for which a reserve has the most amount of safety and appropriateness regarding the safeguards.
Well, I'm going to break us there. This is a really, really interesting topic. We will stand, I guess, in recess.
Am I excused?
Members, is it okay if the comptroller not come back? He has a lot of work to do. All good with that?
Sorry, I just wanted clarification.
Yes. Trust me.
Thank you. Hey,
this time of the process, you're excused whenever you want to be.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Lee, if you don't mind, we're going to ask you to stick around, come back. We'll stand at ease or in recess until 1:30 or upon adjournment.